Hello. Welcome to Coaching with Chris. I'm so excited to be able to have our national sales manager on today, interviewing him and a little bit of history, guys. Let you in underneath the hood of how it all started with Kevin and I. So, without any more talk, well, maybe I should say, Kevin, come on in. Let's see you. And then I want to kind of give everybody the whole fill in. First of all, I don't know if this all got screwed up. Please ignore it. As in, I don't know what I was doing. Maybe I'm a rookie, but I was pushing buttons on my iPad and then everything went bad. So I got off track. Anyways, Kevin Carlson's been with me since '06. I remember the day that we started. A little history. We were both mortgage brokers. We were both grinding it out. We decided to get together and create a state chapter with NAM. And this was probably before then, maybe '03-ish, Kev?
Yeah, '04, something like that. Yeah.
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 And so we thought we'd do that. We thought we'd start a state convention. We started working on a state convention so we'd meet and be able to plan this whole thing out. And then I'm like, we got to figure out a way to work together. '06, we started working together. So we all made the transfer. And then we made the transfer to Plains Commerce Bank together in the end of '08. And so we've got a long history. He probably knows too much about me, and I probably know too much about him. But welcome, Kevin. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. I wish I was in Arizona like you. I'm in South Dakota, where I am right now, and it's like I had to shut my curtain because it was so bright. The reflection off the snow, it was blinding, and it was making my whole face look dark. So it's 4 feet of snow and about, 20 degrees here. But doing great regardless. I'm really excited about this new role. It's been drinking from a fire hose to be sure, but you got a great thing going on here, and it's been really fun to join the team, man.
Well, as you know, fairness, because I feel like you're throwing Arizona at me a little bit. So as fairness, I did leave Saturday. It was 16 below. It's 33 in Sioux Falls right now. And according to my temperature here, it's only 58. So I did not improve the situation a ton.
This is true. But I was talking to people in Florida on Saturday, a whole bunch of people looking to buy houses in Florida, and they were all complaining because it was 59 degrees. And I'm like, I didn't want to hear it. I don't even want to hear it because it was negative 13 air temperature that day. So, yeah, they got nothing.
So your career, you go in the very, what I didn't share was how you really got started, which I think is a very interesting spot. And then we'll get to what are you most excited about? What do you want to change about the broker community? But I think it's important for everyone to realize that you were a broker at heart. You started in the business, and everybody's got a story. Isn't it true how you started in mortgage? Everybody's got this little story.
Yeah, for sure. I got a bunch of those, unfortunately, or fortunately. I've got a lot of, you were talking earlier today, our theme of the week. You always have a theme of the week when we do our individual coaching with Chris. And this morning, it was all talking about failure and how failure is a good thing and it propels you forward. And I thought, thank God, because I've had plenty of failures in my career. And that must be the secret to my success, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, the whole journey started in, I actually had a business that was we made marching band shows. That was my business, and I come from my whole family's all musicians, all music people, and so you wouldn't believe this, but that's not a growth industry. Marching band arrangement and shows is not like every dime that was coming in the door was going right back out to keep this company afloat. And my wife was working as an RN at the time, and we're living in Rochester, Minnesota. She's working at the Mayo Clinic, which is a very cool place. But she was like, I am sick of supporting you. You need to get out and get a real job because you're, basically her nursing income was keeping us afloat. And so we had this big knockdown, drag out fight. And I said, fine, I will get a job. And I opened up the newspaper and pointed to the first ad that I saw. Literally, I would just open up and say, okay, fine, I'll go be a telemarketer for this mortgage company. And that's what I did. That's where I started. And she kind of stood there with her arms folded until I actually called the guy and got an interview. And And it was like, I came in, I never done a job interview before. So I came in as, I polished my shoes. I got the fancy paper for my resume and everything. And the guy that was interviewing me was like in a tracksuit. I mean, it was a telemarketing room, and it was like old school, like the ceiling tiles were knocked out with the phone cords coming down, and you would just sit there and dial and talk to people all night long. And it was brutal, man. It was hard. Because this is in the late 90s when I started, 1997. And we were refinancing people out of double-digit rates into single-digit rates. And a lot of those times, those people did not want to talk to me. And but I will tell you this, I did that for a year, and that was the best sales training I could have gotten, because you have to go down and be like, wow, that guy just screamed at me for 20 minutes. Yes, I'll put my face back on and dial the next one. You got into the groove, and you got it, so you became bulletproof after a while. And I would not, even though it was a brutal year, I would not trade that for anything. It really did prep me for stuff that would come later in life.
A lot of lessons in that, which didn't transfer to you. Obviously, didn't stay in telemarketing that long. I was just thinking, talking to loan officers all over, the biggest struggle is getting everyone to pick up the phone. And I wonder if the struggle isn't, it's mind and mind games and, everything that our mind says, but we just don't have a list in front of us. Like being a telemarketer, they have a list in front of you. They are told, these are your calls for today, and go make them. And you don't do it. Like, right. How much better would we be if we just simply had a list in front of us?
I'm not sure if I should even say this or not, but here's the deal. In the telemarketing room, there were 3 girls that kicked everybody's butts, like every single time they came in. And again, I'm not sure if I should say this or not, but we called them the toxic triplets, because they always came in with their pupils just completely popped. And I don't know what they were on, but they just did not care. They did not care what they said or how they presented themselves. And at the end of the day, these girls kind of come in and like, oh, whatever, they were like 19 years old, and they outpaced everybody. Because I swear to God, they just didn't care. They did not care. They just got done with the first one, dial the next one, dial the next one, dial the next one. At the end of the night, you look up and they're putting up these huge numbers. You're like, man, I got to get on what they're on or something. I don't know. But what I think they were on, they didn't care. Yeah. They didn't let it bother them. They let that, the bullet that hits them just bounces right off, and they were bulletproof at that point.
Yeah. Being an originator for so many years and then transferring into this side, what do you feel like was some of the things that you learned from originating that was maybe a failure, but then turned to a success, or it was a failure, don't do this. I finally got myself out of it. Lessons in a sense. We talked this morning in our call today that, there's losses and then there's lessons. And what if we change losses to lessons? How much better would we be? But what were some of your lessons along the way?
Yeah, great question. So I think back to where I started was, that telemarketing shop, did that for a year, and then they turned me into a loan officer, which was a bit of the deep end of the pool type of training. But it was all refinances at that time. And every once in a while I'd stumble into a purchase, and I didn't know what I was doing for a purchase. So, I mean, all I knew about real estate agents is that they did not like me as a general rule, and that's mostly because I would just not treat it with the utmost respect. And I didn't treat it with, I didn't know what I was doing, frankly, back in the late 90s and early 2000s. Excuse me. And so when I started with Chris, this is a story we've told before. Chris was all about, hey, look, refinances are great, but that's the icing on the cake. We make our money, we make our business out of helping people buy houses. This is a purchase business. And that way, if you have a purchase-oriented business, you can control your destiny. You're not just, kind of flailing in the breeze, waiting for the next, interest rate drop to come down. You're actually, able to take the bull by the horns. And so I came in one day, and Chris had bought these customized bagel boxes.
Gosh.
You remember this?
I had no idea where you're going. Now I know where we're headed.
Now you know the story, right? So he bought these. It had this nice, the logo around the outside of the box, had this nice like fold up box, and it was full of bagels. He said, "All right, loan officers, get out of here, go deliver these to all the realty shops in town and go have conversations with real estate agents. And I never done that before.
Well, by the way, pause for just a second. By the way, let's say that
Yeah.
there's 13 or 14 loan officers, or whatever it was, and I bought, did you get
Right.
2 or 3 dozen of bagels? So that,
I think I got 2 dozen,
yeah,
maybe
two.
it was
So
3. I think it
two
was 2
boxes,
bagels.
custom made. The bagels were inside. The whole thing was just to start a conversation. But I'd have to get up early in the morning, haul in 24, 36 boxes of these custom bagels, all done in our boxes.
Yep.
Set them all up just for you guys to basically do. So spoon fed, I was spoon feeding this in at the moment.
Totally teed us up. You totally teed us up.
So now what?
So now I went to the realty shop that I was assigned to. It was not that far away. It was only like 10 blocks away from the office, right? And I threw these 2 boxes of bagels in the back of my trunk of my car. And I drove over there and I sat there in the parking lot for 60 minutes. Trying to get up the gumption to go inside and give them food. Like it's not like I was, going to even be asking them. I was bringing them bagels and just kind of introducing myself. And I could not get up the nerve to do it. After an hour, I'm sitting there talking to myself in the mirror. I pulled out of there and I drove to a dumpster and I threw them in the dumpster. True story. Sorry, Chris. I'm sorry. I did that though. But anyway, so in terms of lessons learned, I mean, that was kind of the starting point. And once we started going down that path and really getting comfortable with purchase, and then improving our process, building a team, and then really again dialing in the process. So we had we spent a lot of time on making sure that what the customer's experience was dialed in, was consistent. And was this we tried to figure out, okay, what's the perfect process? Let's try to get as perfect as we possibly can. How can we replicate that? And how can we infuse little points of delight along the way? So the customer doesn't feel like they're getting a root canal, when they're getting their mortgage. We want to make sure it was something that was, A, we're delivering on what we're supposed to be delivering on, but B, it's an enjoyable transaction. And by the time it was all said and done, we had some really, really good years and kind of rocketed from the bottom of anything to being nationally ranked and a really solid mortgage experience with what we call raving fans. That's the pinnacle of the mountain, right? When you get people that are singing your praises on high and really like what you're delivering.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think that if more originators are working on your process and perfecting your process and writing it down and training your staff and your team to that process, but then it's like we created this process, we're the originator, we're the first ones to break the process or not want to follow it or want to take shortcuts, and then we screw up the whole thing, and then the team basically says, well, that's not really a rule, that's just a good idea. And then everything is for nothing, but keeping to it, sticking to it. Dang, it moves mountains.
100%. I had to tell my team just to look, you got to boss me around because I'm not going to follow my own process. Even though we went to such pains to do it, I had to take myself out of the equation and make myself so I wasn't a variable. And then they would just do it because I knew they would, and they did. So yeah, it was good stuff.
You spend a lot of time, and your brain naturally as a marketer. I mean, you love to do marketing, and you did market. And tell everybody, why you felt like the extra effort, the extra expense of marketing yourself. Maybe just to give you a clue of where I'm headed, it was almost somewhat mindset, somewhat strategy, somewhat branding out into the marketplace. Walk us through that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny. We will invest in some areas of our lives, but how much are you really investing in your business? How much are you actually putting back in? And I've always been of the opinion that you got to put about 10% back into your business just for marketing of what you're bringing in. And that can be, it can be a big number if you start hitting some big sales goals. But you're basically, that's a down payment on next month. If you're always, kind of putting money back into the marketing campaign. And I mean, this is something that we talked about a few years ago. I decided to go into, and we've done radio before. Some of my funnest parts were when Chris would just go, "Hey, what are you doing right now?" I was like, "Oh, nothing. Come on, let's go in my truck." All right, hop in the truck. Where are we going? Oh, we're going to the radio station. Okay, what are we going to do there? Well, we're going to cut an ad. We get to the radio station. The guy's like, "What are we talking about?" He goes, "Oh, no, what should we talk about?" And it was just like so off the cuff. And then we would just talk for a half hour, and then the producer would say, "Okay, I got enough," and he would somehow magically splice that into a commercial. It was the best. But I think what you're talking about right now, a few years ago, I decided to put billboards out there. And the idea was we'd been there's an award that we have in our local market. It's called the Local Best. And it's kind of this coveted award, holds a lot of weight. And people really will look that, okay, who's the local? It's like Yelp or, Google or something like where people are looking up to see who the best is in an area. And we had won this thing for like 10 years. And so I just put a billboard out, say, get a better mortgage, all the different accolades that we'd had. And I remember you've kind of fought me on it at the beginning. You're like, I don't think you should be doing billboard. And the idea was this was a long-term play, right? I wanted to get my name out there and get it so that people would associate me with the best in town. And it worked. It had a really profound impact on my stuff. Now, I'm not saying that billboards work in every single, like that's the key to life or anything. But in this particular one, having our thumb on that scale and keeping it consistent out there, we ran billboards for a few years, and we didn't ever go crazy. We had kind of a rotating one where it would be at one place for a month, the next place for a month, the next place for a month, static billboards. People would think, "Oh, I see your billboards all over town." And I'm thinking, well, I only have one up at a time, but that's cool. I'm glad it's getting some traction and getting some play. At the end of the day, how I knew it was starting to work was people would say, "Well, I called you up because everybody says you're the best." Okay, well, that's cool. That means that it was doing its job and doing some of the heavy lifting. The other thing that I found is that if I was going to go meet with a real estate agent that I hadn't met or some sort of a referral partner that I really hadn't interacted with before, just having those stupid billboards up, it's amazing. Just putting your face out there and getting out there gives you instant credibility. If nothing else, they know that you are successful enough to be able to afford a giant sign of yourself, which is a little strange, but it works. It absolutely worked, and it really did help move the needle on my business.
Yeah, and I think it helped you, right? I mean, it was easier for you to call that you knew that most people knew Kevin Carlson.
Absolutely, it helped.
It did. You walked through video. You were probably even before your time in the video. From your Mortgage Zen series, which, man, we got to bring that out, dust it off, and have some fun with that. Having that conversation of going into wholesale and being able to help mortgage brokers across the country. Why'd you do it?
It's a good question. I've had a few people ask me that because I was kind of a bit of the top of the game on the retail side of things. Well, I'll tell you a few things. First of all, I feel like I could move the needle over here. I feel like I've learned enough, to getting from where we were to where I was when I left that position, that I could really kind of expand that knowledge. And I've really, in the few conversations I've been able to have with some owners and some individual brokers, I think there's a lot of good that I can bring to this community. I think there's a lot of tricks that were hard earned. We talked about making mistakes. There's an old adage that says a smart person will make a mistake and then will learn from that mistake. But a wise person will just find some smart person that already did the stuff, and so they won't have to and just copy them, right? Just learn what they did. And I think I could maybe be that smart person to a lot of wise people out there. I could maybe say, okay, well, here's some of the landmines that I've stepped on, got my legs blown off over the years. Avoid these, and maybe that will help move the needle. The other thing that I'd say is that when you and I started, we've talked about this before. We were kind of the David, and there were some other Goliaths that were out there in our local market, right?
Well, Wells Fargo,
and we would look to those.
They were the Goliath.
Oh, they were huge, and they were just untouchable, and everyone just revered them. We'd all kind of, look at them like they were gods or something, And we just were relentless, and we kept making these little advances. And every month there's this report that comes out, and they were always up top. We were down here somewhere, and we'd gain a little bit of ground on. And then one day, I remember when this happened, so we all kind of were like, dude, you see that? We nipped them. We went just a hair over them. And then they clobbered us the next month, whatever. But then eventually the tides completely shifted, and we became the Goliath. That was a fun climb to make, I got to tell you, like, because you're always in that mode of how do we get better? How do we get better? How do we get better? And that's a fun way to go to work. And I feel like I'm kind of, going from a Goliath mode back into a David mode. And I found it absolutely exhilarating. Like, it's been fun to look around and just be asking those questions again. How do we get better? How do we get better? But on a much bigger scale. And I think we can really not only move the needle for us. Windsor as a company is a fun place to work because we're always looking to sharpen the saw. But how can we make our partners better? Like, what things can we give them so that, like, because if they win, if our partners win, we win. That's the way it should be, So that's why I took the job, and that's why I've been kind of giddy ever since I did.
Yeah, I mean, you started the first of the year, and so for everybody listening, Kevin became national sales manager for Windsor. Huge passion for the broker community. But don't you agree that you remember what it feels like to be a broker? Like, it's not like you've
100%.
forgotten that piece. And I think the broker world has changed since you and I were a broker, for sure.
Absolutely.
To the better. But the movement to being broker, what do you see into that?
So yeah, for the first 10 years, I was in the mortgage business. I was a broker, and I've always said the definition of stress is responsibility without control. And I think that's a lot of the times the place that the broker finds themselves in. They got a responsibility to their customers, to their real estate agents, their referral partners, and their families. That's always there. And at the end of the day, they don't always have complete control because they're going to be, dependent upon partners like us. I take that very seriously. That's a big deal. And if we can have our partners' backs, like, I think that really that's a long-term partnership. That's a relationship play that I'm not sure is at the top of everyone's mind in terms of other partners that are out there. But I can tell you that's really central to who we are and how we operate. As far as what I see, I'm really curious to know more about what I've missed over the last 15 years. I've been more in the retail side of things and not necessarily in the broker channel per se, but I still approach every day, like I've all the way through. We never really lost that. We had very little business just walking in the door over there at the bank. So we weren't your traditional sit behind the desk and, take whatever walks in the door. We very much had the heart, the soul, the hunger of a broker. And we're out there saying, hey, if we're gonna have business, we're gonna have to make this business, and we're gonna have to make ourselves. And so, again, I feel like that's something that even though I had a title of mortgage banker and senior mortgage banker as of a month ago, we still have all this time had the heart and soul of a broker when it comes down to it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think the broker community is going to really grow. I think that if you look at the broker community and you're like, when it gets like really, really busy, there had been in the past a shift to retail because it was easier to get, to do more loans and more infrastructure and more teams, but that's out. I think all of our customers have just gotten so much better that they can handle volume, they can handle infrastructure, they can handle changes, they have better structure, better play. And I'm excited to see, for you, the amount of growth in 2024 of helping out all of these customers, being able to assist our account executives across the country, but, and even being out in the field, speaking to these companies and being able to, take advantage of some of your strengths, building teams, looking at marketing, showing what the true loan process looks like. I think everybody's got an idea, but actually doing it for years and years and years and having success to do it, well, it's a lot easier to follow. So I always believe, be a good Xerox machine, and I think you're going to be a great Xerox machine to many of our customers. As we wrap up, we're thinking about what you're excited for 24, and you're looking at the opportunities, what are you most excited about in 2024 as far as market and as far as things to be excited about? Because I know we not only mentioned you're a great originator, you're great at marketing, but you're really good at the market too, and understanding and paying attention to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's, you never want to try to predict. I made the mistake about a year ago, a little over a year ago, I was speaking to a realty group and said, "Hey, we're not going to hold you to this, but what are rates going to be a year from now? This is like in October." I said, "I don't know, guys. I'll just tell us." And so I said, "I think it'd be about 5.5." This would have been in October of 2022, right? And so they put that stupid number on their community calendar at the bank. Kevin Carlson says it's going to be 5.5% on October, because it was, it was at 8.25 or something like that in October of 2023, whatever. And of course, they're all calling me, "Hey, pal, so much for your predictive powers." But what I will say is that it certainly seems like we got some momentum on our side in terms of where the market's going, where the bond market's going. Certainly appears that whether or not we're going to hit the soft landing perfectly or not still remains to be seen. But it seems like maybe the majority of the heavy lifting that has to be done in terms of fighting inflation, we're hoping is in the rearview mirror, which means we might start to see us seeing rates mitigate a little bit. And rates mitigating has all sorts of things, right? First of all, refinances that have been largely absent for the last couple of years, those start to perk back up. That'll be led by streamlined refinances, interest rate reduction loans with VA, cash out refinances. We got this weird confluence of credit card debt over $1 trillion, which you've never seen before, coupled with an average home equity of over $200,000 in everybody's houses. So you've got this weird mismatch. People have a lot of wealth in their houses, and that they're borrowing at super high interest rate loans. Well, that just has a natural, it's a natural approach to maybe try to do a cash out refinance or pay off your existing debt and then buy the next property. If someone's sitting at a 3% rate or 3.5% rate, and the best available option for them is 7.5 or 8%, that is golden handcuffs. That keeps them in their house. And even if they have a need to move, they're probably not going to move. But if that rate starts to get down closer to 5%, somewhere in that neck of the woods, not saying that's definitely going to happen, but it seems like that's maybe where we're headed. Well, then they, okay, I can stomach a 5% rate or 5.5% rate, coming off of my 3% rate.
There's a number. There's a number,
right? And I think that people, it's almost like, things got so high so fast that everyone just said, well, I'm not going in there. But when things start to look a little bit rosier, I think we'll start to see people listing their houses, which is going to help the inventory problem. The whole thing is related. And so I think there's a ton of opportunity out there. And there's a lot of people that have only experienced purchase market, have not really experienced refinance market. And that is this about me to a fault. That's my happy place, is talking about refinancing and how to set people up well for refinancing. I think 24 is going to be just full of opportunity. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I think 24 is going to be even a little bit better than 22. And I think a lot of us had a pretty good year in 22. I think it could be a titch better. And, there's a lot of things in question. First of all, they're going to 6 hikes, and now they're down to 4 hikes. But remember, that has nothing to do with the 10-year or how the mortgage-backed securities are going to trade, of which I think is going to be have some pressure and be able to get some demand back. But, the magic word that came out just today in our management meeting, which I have not heard as of till today, which was deflation.
Yeah.
And understanding the difference between deflation, recession, and then, of course, the famous I word that bonds all hate, which is inflation. But deflation could be a thing that is definitely at a forefront of a lot of conversations today.
Yeah, we're starting to see deflation. At least people talking about the risk of deflation. And there's a lot of very deflationary forces out there. AI, I mean, if AI really lands, that'll be an extremely deflationary force. That's one of those things that could just, get productivity through the roof, which would be great, except for it'll be a little bit destabilizing. Deal with deflation, Japan hit it. They've been dealing with it for 20 years or so.
Yeah.
Once you're in that deflationary cycle, people avoid buying because they think it's going to be cheaper in the future. It's the opposite of inflation, and that can actually be a bigger problem than inflation. So the point is that to try to keep us, if we're steering toward deflation, they would. Presumably, they would do everything they can to try to avoid that, which would actually be to get out ahead of it and try to spur the economy again.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. Well, Kevin, thanks so much for coming on. Look, if you know somebody that could benefit from all the different series of Coaching with Chris, please, please, please invite them in so we can get them part of our community. We're excited to be able to give back. We got some amazing, amazing guests coming up, and also, working with Kevin. He wants to help you. So please reach out to Kevin. He loves being able to help you, whether it's strategy, maybe it's a deal, maybe it's some problem that you're dealing with, or you just need a little bit of a lesson and a loss. Kevin, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure, Chris. Enjoy the rest of the 58-degree day. I'll be pleasing with you.
I will. See you later. Thanks.
All right, see you, man.